But I think, I am actually expected to talk briefly about the Mutually Aided Cooperative Societies Act, and the experience thereof, which came into being in the year 1995. And so it's now 25 years. And I would say uh, because it's the Self-Reliant Cooperative Act, somehow it's the cooperative department or the registrar of cooperatives completely forgets because they don't have opportunity to interfere. So we were struggling to get data to see how many have been registered. They even forgot to monitor. They forgot to count the numbers. I guess for the cooperative registrar, there is no excitement about just keeping a tab on, or are they all kind of filing their returns? Are they all conducting their annual general body meetings? Are they all having elections? Are they, audits are happening. Those are supposed to be mandated as per the Mutually Aided Cooperative Societies Act. So while we all think that government interference is bad, and the interference can be sometimes so bad that you can't even do what you want to do in terms of cooperatives being member-owned enterprises. But here, it's just the other extreme of government almost ignoring the vibrant. There are supposed to be 60,000 registered mutually aided cooperative societies in just the states of Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. And I'm talking about the states where the Max Act originated and not the 8 other states that followed. I think 2 of the states repealed that act, Orissa and Madhya Pradesh. I think that's kind of from the government side. But all these mutually aided cooperative societies, 90% of them are government promoted, by the way. These are the self-help group federations at the village level called village organizations, or at the slum level called slum level federations in the urban areas, or the mandal samakhyas or cluster level federations, or the town level federations. We also have some weavers for max, some fisheries max, some even in other kind of sectors. But more recently, many of the farmer producer organizations are also registered under the Mutually Aided Cooperative Societies Act. The interesting piece is that I would say till now maybe almost 1,000 of them have been registered. FPOs have been registered in the Max Act. But interestingly enough, under the new guidelines of Government of India of promoting 10,000 FPOs under the central sector scheme, there is complete, I would say, prohibition that if you are registered as a max or if you are registered as a cooperative, then you are not eligible for promotional cost, then you are not eligible for equity grant, then you are not eligible for loan guarantee scheme, then you are not eligible for many others, because they are saying we want to promote producer companies and not producer cooperatives. So this may be Ramareddy garu completely violating 191C, which could be challenged. And there are guidelines issued by agencies like NABARD, SFAC, and it's even written in the operational guidelines of the central sector scheme. So just going back to the max, and I think in these 25 years, the savings and credit cooperatives, self-help group federations, and many of the CDF promoted, almost 400 of them, and then other cooperatives. I think they're all doing extremely well. Fortunately, there is no fraud and also very less corruption. If it is a corruption induced because of government employees, that's a different matter. And these self-help group federations have promoted their own women's bank called the Srinidhi, which now in both states, of Andhra and Telangana, the Srinidhi Cooperative Federation, which is the federation of self-help groups at the state level, is now managing close to 7,000 crores of loan fund. So I would say liberal cooperatives are thriving. I think there is enough empirical evidence to show that, and the period of 25 years is, in my opinion, a long enough period. And most of the SHG federations have been promoted, let's say, in the past 10, 15 years. Even then, I would say there is enough evidence to show. And Miraji, this is again all women cooperatives, all the SHG federations. So it adds up to, the whole women centric. And I'm also happy to report that many of those that are now registered under the Max Act as part of the FPOs, we are promoting all women farmer producer cooperatives. So the idea is, if it is built on this SHG foundation, they know how to meet, they know how to save, they know how to conduct meetings, how to negotiate with banks, how to negotiate with private sector players. They know how to run their business. So we see if large number of these women come into the farmer producer organizations, they're able to have better managed farmers collectives. And in the process, women are then recognized as farmers, because 70% of the agriculture is done by women. They're not only there as shareholders, but they are also there as leaders, in the board of directors. In fact, we recently with Makam did a policy note which was circulated to all the policymakers in the country, that all FPOs should have 50% women in the country. Why not? If 70% of agriculture done by women, 50% farmers, even if they don't have land in their name. Second, we said even the leadership, 50% of the board of directors, should be women members. In fact, the Secretary Agriculture, Government of India, in one of the virtual meetings, was asked how many women should be there in a farmer producer organization, and how many should be in the board of directors. And he I think he was a nice guy. So he said, Madam, why don't you promote an all women FPO? We will announce some awards for all women FPOs. By the way, we also have the Vijay Lakshmi Das Award for all women FPO. So I think the experience and learning from the Mutually Aided Cooperative Societies Acts, which are the parallel liberal cooperative laws, has proven beyond doubt that these ensure autonomy, these ensure independence, they conduct their own elections, they appoint their own auditors, the term is determined by them. It is a kind of Rajya Sabha model of 1/3 of the board of directors change, so there is newness. At the same time, experience and old continue to be part of the governance structures. So I think, Shambhu, we should look at some studies that we conduct as part of our initiative to create this empirical evidence that cooperatives shall be autonomous, cooperatives shall be independent, and the states, and I totally agree with what Mirai said, state governments can be worse than central government in terms of interference. They may not be interfering in terms of, through laws, but they won't give you registration, even though you are supposed to be registered within 30 days. I think again, Max Act specified that if you are not registered in 90 days, you are deemed to be registered. But if you don't have a registration certificate, what do? You can't open a bank account, or you can't do business transactions. So I think the Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, maybe Bihar, Karnataka, other states that have liberal cooperatives, shown that, and there is a study of the Access Livelihood Consulting has done a study which was supported by Shashi Rajagopal and the late. So I think we have that kind of report also available for us to use, and that could be more compelling on the national government and the state governments. And if we are doing what Dr. Jayaprakash Narayan mentioned in the morning, At one level, we need to engage in litigation if we want to align all the state cooperative laws with the 19(1)(c) of right to form cooperatives as a fundamental right. At the same time, we need to engage with the state government so that we are able to educate them, we are able to help them understand, and we are able to make sure that they become more enabling to kind of have that ease of doing business. And most importantly, I think all of us sitting in this room are in a way secondary stakeholders to the cooperatives. I think we have a huge task to facilitate and support and create that awareness for the members themselves drive that movement, because we would like them to do the litigation, we would like them to do the advocacy, we would like them, because if there are 100 farmers who go to the chief minister and say we would like it to be like that, CMs and PMs are more likely to listen to them than civil society organizations, however reputable we might be, each of the organizations. So I think today's discussion, I'm delighted that we are doing this discussion. So much clarity is emerging, and I'm hoping that building on the experience of what has happened through the Mutual Aided Cooperative Societies Acts, other such liberal cooperative laws in the country, we're able to come up with some kind of policy paper, we are able to come up with some kind of the Anand Declaration, and continue to engage at all levels, at the level of the community, the cooperatives, at the level of the state governments, national governments. And I agree with what Mr. Ramareddy said in the morning. I think the International Cooperative Alliance, the National Cooperative Union of India, the state cooperative unions, they need to get their act together and really play the role for the cooperative system to be a bottom-up system driven by members and not top-down, because the moment they become top-down, governments get interested and excited about it. So thank you very much.